Hello everyone, my name is Cheryl. I'm an orientation and mobility specialist with Guide Dogs Singapore. And in today's podcast, we're going to talk a little bit more about guide dogs. Today with us, we have Christina, who is our Guide Dogs mobility instructor, as well as Simone, who's an orientation and mobility specialist. Hi guys, can you all introduce yourself?
Okay, so hi, I'm Christina. So I'm the guide dog instructor, and what I do is to train the dogs as well as the vision impaired to use their dogs.
Hello everyone, Simone here. I'm the orientation and mobility specialist. So basically I train the person how to travel around safely and efficiently. And that includes the use of the cane. Yep.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so basically we work together in the same company, Guide Dog Singapore, because we believe that people in Singapore with vision impairment should learn some independent skills, which includes mobility skills as well as transitioning into a guide dog should they choose to do so lah. And the reason for this podcast is because we actually have more questions for Christina and how it relates to orientation and mobility. And we will also be asking more questions that we think people working in this field, whether is it the optometrist, whether it's a social worker, whether it's a occupational therapist, they might have questions regarding guide dogs as well. So we'll be asking questions like that. So to start, Christina, can you share a little bit more about if there's any age or physical or cognitive restrictions to getting a guide dog?
I think, okay, the only restrictions in terms of age, I would say, is maturity, because usually uh, children or rather young adults, if they are still unsure about the responsibility that it entails in terms of taking care of a guide dog, then we would not advise on it, because it is, no matter what, taking care, you have to take care of another living being, and it is a commitment and a responsibility for that teamwork to get going, and you need to put in that amount of commitment to it as well. So I would say maturity is a big part, and that is probably one of the things we would assess if the handler or the vision impaired person coming in to apply for a guide dog is relatively young. So far, I think the youngest person I have um, matched with a dog and trained with a dog is 16, or
Oh,
actually more like 17.
was
Yeah.
that in Singapore?
No, that's back in Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah, but she was pretty mature in the sense that she had a very clear view of what course of study she wanted to take and the direction she wanted to take. And when we interviewed her on the reason for getting a guide dog, her own reason, and that is really her own reason, not her parents' reason, was that she has intention of following through with her studies in order to be independent and to be able to one day move into the city independently and live on her own.
Wow,
Yeah.
she's very
So
mature.
yeah, so she has very clear view, and that was why in the end we decided that she is probably a good candidate to have as a guide dog user. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people they might get pressured by like their friends or family to get a guide dog, but in the
Yeah.
end, it needs to
Yes.
be your own decision, right? Because you're taking care of the dog,
Yes.
you need to work with the dog every
That's
day.
right.
Like a lot of people just think that like with the dog or my parents can take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing I would advise against, because in order for the dog to bond with the handler needs to put in the effort to be the caregiver for the dog. And as I would say, feeding and taking care of the dog is the sole responsibility of the handler. I would not advise on saying, oh, I'll just do the walking part on the routes, but then I'll hand over the rest of the care to someone else in the
Yeah.
family. That's a definite no.
What about on the other spectrum? Who is the oldest client that you've ever like taught a guide dog to?
I think probably not the oldest in terms of generic, in terms of like the rest of my colleagues, but personally I think the oldest I have ever trained with a guide dog was someone who's in his 70s,
Oh,
75. Yeah, and that was his fourth or fifth guide dog
Oh
already.
wow, okay. So what are the kinds of like areas that you look at when you assess a person that is like of an older age?
I
Any
think
like
for
specific
a person with an
department?
older age, it's really whether are they physically able to take care of the dog at that age anymore. Because we know that as we get older, we get aches and pains, and sometimes it's like you don't even feel like going out as often anymore. So that can, in some sense, inhibit being, how to say, allowing a guide dog to fulfill its best function, because if you are not regularly going out on, be it a regular walk or something that needs you to get out of the house, which means you physically need to be able to be mobile, then it doesn't serve the function of a guide dog, you see. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Basically, you need to be able to use the dog lah, like as in like give it enough work still. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
and
cool.
also because, and I guess one thing is to add is also that a dog, no matter what, is a Labrador Retriever that we usually use here, is still a sizable dog, and you need a certain ability to manage a dog as well in certain situations.
As in like arm
So
strength, is it?
I wouldn't say you need like a lot of arm strength, but you would at least need to be firm, especially in the early training, because the dog is still getting to know you. You are getting to know the dog. So you still need to instill certain rules
Like
and discipline here
I'm
to
the handler here, and then you have to listen to
yes,
me, that kind of thing
yes,
lah.
correct. Which can happen with a young dog. So these would be some considerations. But of course, one thing that we consider when matching with someone older is also that the dog's temperament would be gentler and not as excitable. Yeah.
If
I
not,
think
the person cannot keep up with the energy.
yeah. I think y'all will also look at the size and the weight and the how big the dog is
Mm,
also, right?
yes, that's right.
Okay, cool. Okay, so like a lot of older folks, or let's say people who might have back issues or leg issues, they will use like a crutch or some sort of like support cane. Are these people still eligible to get a guide dog?
Someone who has back issues. So when we did the assessment, he basically told me he has back issues, although not severe all the time, but there are times where he does need some sort of support cane. And other times he may just need some sort of a support to steady himself, which is why then we decided we'll match him with a bigger dog, so to give that bit of balance where he can help to steady himself, of course not to lean his weight on the dog, but at least to steady his pace in terms of not losing balance as often when the pain comes. And of course, in times of when he needs to use his support cane for back support or whatsoever, then we do advise that he can use it on the right hand as well. But then it also means that the dog has to be trained to work with that extra support cane next to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you foresee like any sort of physical or cognitive impairments that might impede a person from using a guide dog then?
If let's say you have such a severe back issue that don't allow you to even bend or squat, then it might be a bit of an issue. It might be a problem because in terms of cleaning up after your dog when
Picking
they
up after
poop
her.
and so on, you will, yes, you will still need to bend down in some sense to, if it is to like remove the toilet bag and so on, you will still need to bend. And to put the toilet bag on, you will still need to bend. So a very serious thing. Like if it's a slight pain or ache where bending over for a bit of time is fine. But if you can't even do that, then I would think you would want to reconsider, because with that kind of severe pain, sometimes walking can be a bit difficult as well to sustain. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Mm.
Yeah, so it sounds like actually for most situations we can like find solutions around it lah. But
Mm,
yeah, so basically if you can still go out, can still have enough work for the dog and still
mm,
can take care of yourself to a certain
yes.
degree, it sounds like you typically pass the first test of eligibility already lah.
In that sense,
Okay, that's nice. Okay,
mm.
let's move on to the next question then. What sort of vision or how severe of a vision impairment do you have to have in order to get a guide dog in Singapore?
I think at this moment there is no hard and fast rule of how severe your vision has to be in order to have a guide dog. But we would, okay, generally in many countries, we will advise that if someone is legally blind, you can apply for a guide dog. However, we realize that in Singapore, I think the legally blind status here is also not very
Not very clear lah.
yeah, not very clear. Yes, and in some instances where the person has maybe like RP, where you have spotty vision, and yet your vision acuity is still quite high, they are still not considered legally blind. But then again, they do need, some of them depends on how badly they're affected by RP. Then in terms of needing a proper, how to say, reliable mobility aid in order to move around is important to them.
Okay,
Then that makes them eligible for a guide dog as well.
I have a question here. Have you ever
Mm.
had a client who like okay has the sort of RP that perhaps this person doesn't go out at night anymore because they cannot really see very well at night only, so they only need to use perhaps a cane or a guide dog at night. Is that okay?
I would not advise it because then you basically restrict yourself to only night use, and generally speaking, you don't really like go out extensively
Oh,
in the night
that's
as
true.
well. Yeah, so then it doesn't really, it defeats, as I say, it will defeat the purpose of having a guide dog. And at the same time, because of the lack of use, your dog skills may also deteriorate
Okay, but
over time.
let's say I do use the dog when I got in
Mm,
the day. It's just that I don't really, I can still see quite well, but I'll still use the dog in the day because like I have to get the dog working, right? But I will need to
mm.
rely on it more in the night.
Yeah, I think in this situation, I did encounter one client, something like that. So in training, what we noticed is because she has quite a fair bit of residual vision left,
Mhm.
so she has a tendency to follow her own line of vision while walking in the day, even when her dog takes her around certain obstacles at a wider distance lah. So we do notice that. However, when we did our training night walk, that is when we really realized she can't see,
Ah,
and she was fully reliant on her dog to guide her on that whole walk itself. So that was the instant that this particular client that I've seen before. And as what I would say about this is that as much as possible, uh, the the handler has to learn to trust the dog, even in the daytime, which can be difficult because if you rely too much on your own line of vision instead of trusting the dog in the daytime.
You are eroding the dog skills.
Yes, that's right. And then you can't expect the dog to just like rise up to the occasion when you need it, you
so
know,
it's like
without having.
if you override the dog in the day, it's likely that the dog won't listen to you as much
Yeah,
as well in the night lah, basically.
it won't naturally do its job when at night when you really need it lah, in that sense, because
Oh my god.
in the daytime it's used to walking with you and saying that, oh, okay, if I decide there's an obstacle in front, I take you around and you think that no, I will follow my line of action and don't follow me.
Okay, yeah, because dogs, and these guide dogs, they learn by like,
Conditioning,
yeah,
yes, by
conditioning.
conditioning, by habituation. Correct.
Oh, that's super funny.
So yeah, so which is why we always tell our vision impaired clients that, you know, you if you want to have a guide dog, then you have to learn to trust your dog. Yeah,
Mm.
and I guess it's a bit more difficult for those with more residual vision, because for them, they tend to still rely a lot on what they can see.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, so like for example, some clients they are worse with contrast, but they are good with let's say certain things like maybe depth perception or like color perception or other things. So I actually have this client who needed like wanted a guide dog for like other purposes, like because like she wanted night travel, she wanted like complex travel and like obstacle avoidance, but she can see steps that are very close to her, so she wouldn't stop. So in that case, right, would you rather just like have the dog like never ever stop at steps, or would you train the client to actually stop at all steps even though she can see the steps?
I think at the initial, okay, it depends on what happens, because if the client's vision is stable, that means this is a condition whereby it would
It
remain
wouldn't
as it
change lah.
is. Yes, it won't change in the future. Want to override the dog on this count, because to you, you know your way, you can see on the steps count to stop. Then I may say, okay, fine. However, if the client's condition is such that it's not stable and it might change in the future and affect her depth perception, then I would not advise it. Even if it's just a stop or a pause, and to reinforce the dog with praise,
So,
it is more
mm,
important than skipping altogether. Yeah.
Mm.
so yeah, so just quick question. So how do you like assess whether this person's vision is going to change? Like, do you bring the client out in different like different times of the day to
I
like?
think usually what I'll do is I'll question the client whether like in his or her medical checks, regular medical checks, right? Has her current vision been the same, and for how long, or has it been changing
So
over
has
a
it been
period of time?
fluctuating?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. That's interesting.
Mm.
Okay, so it just sounds like no matter what vision type you have, just come for an assessment with us first, because vision is so complex. So we will really need to see
Yes.
like your whole situation, how mobile are you, plus your current vision,
Yes.
plus the time of day,
Correct.
and we can
Correct.
just discuss the different options lah.
Yes, that's right. Because in fact, some people, as much as they can't see, they use their other senses to compensate on their vision as well.
Mm.
So yeah, it's as you say, different people is different.
Mm.
It's better to just come in for a consultation, and then we can discuss further on it.
Nice. Okay, so previously we also talked about like how if you apply for a guide dog with GDS, most of the training costs as well as the dog importation costs are all covered by GDS, and the only thing you would need to pay for would be the monthly food bills, or is that what food
Yeah.
for the dog
Yeah,
basically, and perhaps some toys.
yeah, correct.
So basically, right, are there any considerations to like the type of housing that a person might need to stay in determining whether this client may be suitable for a guide dog? Like if there's enough space in the house, or if there's too many people in the house, is there any sort of considerations?
I think so far, okay, if you're talking about Singapore-wise in terms of the housing, HDB is not an issue, because we do know that HDB has allowed guide dogs as service dogs to be living in our housing estates, our public housing. So that's not an issue. However, if let's say you are staying in an environment where, let's say, is very crowded and many people, then I would advise that it's better for us to come in and take a look and maybe advise you on how we can make it more conducive, because in terms of sleeping wise, we always advise it's always best for the dog to be sleeping with, of course not on the same bed, but in the same room as the handler. Yeah, in the same room as the handler, just to build that bond that the dog is always looking to the handler for instructions, and also for easy access of the handler to the dog.
Mm.
So I won't say a definite that you cannot, but there'll be certain things that we might advise on in terms of space, where we can make a conducive space for the dog to sleep at night.
So it's
Yeah.
more of like the like if there's clutter in the house, if it's possible to create a space for the dog. Not
Yes,
like
correct.
how big the
And
house is or whatever.
yeah, correct. And in terms of clutter, whether is it dangerous clutter, like
Mm.
leaving like insect repellent on the floor, that kind of thing, which is
Mm.
hazard. It's a hazard, it's a health hazard for the dog. Yeah. So of course the dogs generally won't go and chew it up, but then again it's still a risk that is there. So we would try to advise against it lah, or food being left on the floor, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so like I think this question is coming from like a social worker's point of view lah. Like let's say I have like maybe a super elderly parent at home or like a super young child at home. Would it be alright to still have the guide dog in the house?
In this case, that's why we will always say we'll do a home assessment when we come and do the guide dog assessment, because then these are things that we will put into the details when it comes to guide dog matching. And we'll take note that the dog that we choose or match with the particular person has to be, in temperament wise, willing to accept kids and
Mm.
gentle with elderly. Yeah.
Okay.
Because as we know, some dogs have different personalities. As much as they
It's like
won't do
humans lah.
harm per se, but some dogs, yeah, some are more boisterous in
Yeah.
terms of getting excited about certain things.
Yeah, I can imagine like this
And
like
I don't.
overly excited dog just
Yes.
knocking a old person over, you know. Yeah.
Correct. Typically, they're not meant to jump, but sometimes they do get excited and they may push you with their body.
Yes.
Or for example, I had one dog before who is actually fine with kids, because or rather I noticed that she doesn't enjoy being around kids. So I actually brought her home to test her out with my two children.
Oh.
And the
Oh
thing
my
is,
god.
she's fine with them hanging around her and petting her and all that. But once she gets the chance, she will remove herself from their presence and go and sit in a
Oh,
corner on her
you
own.
will avoid lah.
So in this case, yeah. So in this case, I definitely won't match her with a family of young, boisterous kids who wants to interact with the dog all the time. I would rather match a dog that is happy to gather and huddle around with the kids,
Aiyo.
Mm.
Okay.
which is actually the sister.
It's quite interesting, like all the dogs all have like such different personalities that we don't really consider, you know. We just think about like walk fast, walk slow.
Yeah. Yeah, correct. Correct. Because I actually brought two dogs home when I assessed this particular dog I was talking about. So I brought two dogs home, which is her and her sister, and just to see what is their interaction with my children like at home. And as I said, the one that is not so keen on kids would remove herself to one corner and just happy to just watch from the side. Whereas her sister is happy to be flat out with my girls, like spread all over there and roll around with her.
Yeah, I guess it's like that's why there's no fixed like guidelines on like whether this dog is suitable or not. Because a lot of times you have to go through the observation, then you sort of can tell whether this dog is like suitable or not.
Yeah. That's why there's never like just one
Yes,
dog for
correct.
one person. It's not like,
Yeah,
okay,
there's
you
no
confirm
fixed.
can get a dog.
Correct.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes it takes a bit of time to do the matching as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, so the next question is actually in regards to more of like independent living skills point of view. Like what are some daily tasks that someone needs to have in order to be able to take on a guide dog? Like for example, do I need to like be a super good cook, or do I need to be like a super good with my laundry or whatever, that kind of skills? Yeah.
I wouldn't say that lah, but I guess daily skills, daily
Okay,
tasks that someone with a guide dog will need to be
let's
able to
say
do.
you have this child. Let's say you have this teenager, let's say she's 18 years old or 16 years old. She's very motivated to get a guide dog because she's like you said just now, she wants to go to university. But her whole life she doesn't do house chores. She relies on maybe her mom to take care of certain things for her. What are some independent living skills we
Okay.
can teach her to sort of get her started on caring for a guide dog?
I think most basic is whether is she independent enough to care for herself in terms of like just having an independent route that she can manage on her own, solely on her own,
Route.
and be confident enough to problem solve on that route.
No, let's say it's like house things. Like let's say she
Within
has
the
her
house.
route. Yeah, but like when she wants to take water, she just gets
Yeah.
someone to take it for her because it's like faster. Or
Yeah,
like,
would you use that as like a consideration when it comes to whether this person is independent enough to use
like
the
how
guide
well
dog?
they can take care of themselves
Actually, I
technically.
would.
You
I
would,
would
right?
because I would, because all these I would say I would rather, if you are the handler of the dog, I would rather you be the one responsible to check if the dog's water is running low and whether you need to fill up the water, and what are some of the management strategies that you can use to fill up that bowl of water so that your dog has access to fresh water daily. And
So
in terms of like measuring out food when pouring out the food portion for your dog and all that, and within the house you should at least know what are some of the basic items being kept, and be independent enough to basically do certain basic things for yourself and for the dog that you're caring for lah.
Okay, so I'm painting a very bad picture of this person lah. But let's say, right, this girl, she's the kind that, yeah, okay, I'm gonna feed my dog, but after I feed my dog, right, I just pass the bowl to my mom to wash. Do you think? Okay, I'm so sorry lah, but do you think this
Fine lah, right? Like,
technically is fine?
oh my god.
So in this case, Christina, would you step in?
Technically, it's fine. I would definitely, actually, for me, I would still step in to advise that I would rather she takes responsibility, because sometimes these small things can
Accumulated,
easily
huh?
snowball to
Yeah,
accumulated.
true, that's
Like,
true.
it's like if it's
It says a lot
easier
lah, right?
to
All
let
these small
someone,
little actions
correct.
that you don't even want to do it for yourself, then you know.
No, but it's not really an
Yeah.
assessment criteria. That's the thing.
It's not assessment criteria, but the thing is, if these are things that you pick up during assessment, that these are things that you are still relying on people to do, then I question, are you sure you would take care of the dog when you have the dog with you? Because it is really like you have an attachment with you from then henceforth. You have to and toilet him, or even if it's raining, I still have to make the effort, not hand it over to someone else to do it for me.
So are you trying to say, like, okay, so for more of like, you need to be able to trust that she can take care of the dog even when you're not around to assess her,
Yes.
and all
Yes,
these
that's
little habits of hers can give you an impression that she might not be that dedicated to taking care of something.
Yes, that's true.
Okay,
It's like going for interview.
I mean, yeah, so I guess, like, let's say this person doesn't know how to measure, doesn't know how to measure water or measure like the food. Would you teach them?
I would advise that it would be good to be taught. Yeah, either, I would of course advise when I can, but if they can take up O&M skills, that would be a good one as well, because these are daily living skills that are useful. Yeah.
So you sort of refer them back to me and Simone to teach the independent living skills with a little note there.
Yeah.
Please teach this person to wash their bowl. Okay, understood. Okay, nice.
I probably won't go down to that minute detail lah, but at least that the person to be reassessed in terms of ability of daily living skills, before putting him or her on the assessment again.
Okay, so I just thought of something. I feel like one of the criteria a guide dog user needs, right, is to be somewhat organized and systematic. Because, like, not only are you taking care of your own things, right, now you have the dog's things also, and it's so easy to get cluttered. And not only that, I realized that when you comb your dog, right, when you comb your dog, right, when you're not systematic at all, right, let's say when you comb your hair, you just, I think here got knot, I think there got knot, I'ma just comb. But when it comes to the dog, you really need to be quite systematic, right? Like one leg by a time, and then the whole body from left to right, and then the tail and whatever.
Yeah lah, but the thing is, different people different, you see. There are some people who are just not so organized somehow. I would say organization it's a main criteria, but at least in their disorganization, they need to find some sort of order that they can recognize.
So organized chaos lah, basically.
Yeah, correct.
As long as you know where you put your stuff or where you
As
have
long as
covered.
you know can already.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
have
Because
their
I've
own way
I've been to clients' house who are super neat and tidy, and everything is in its place and labeled so that they know exactly where to find what they need. And at the same time, I've been to other clients' house who have things everywhere. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like basically there's a whole bunch of things that you need to put together in order to assess this person, and there's no like
Yes.
Hard or
And
fast
also,
rules.
hard and
yeah.
fast rules. Yeah. Okay, that's
Hard
very
and fast rules,
interesting.
correct. And it's ultimately how they also work things around to organize and somehow make things work in that teamwork and relationship when they have a guide dog with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess if you're willing to properly organize things, create a space where you can put all the dog things, it's another indication to
Yeah.
you that this person is ready for a dog lah, basically.
Yeah.
Committed to
Yes.
using the guide dog.
Oh yeah. Okay,
Yes.
that's very good. Okay. Everything leads back to that somehow. Okay. Last one of the last questions we have. Basically, right, in terms of orientation and mobility, let's say this person has their fixed routes. So for us, when we refer someone over to learn or to take up a guide dog, right, we have to make sure that this person has two solid routes that they use on a regular basis. So let's say this person has that two solid routes, but this person has naturally bad orientation skills. What that means is that perhaps their body to the environment sense is not very good. They don't really know how much they're turning left or right. They feel like they turn left, but they didn't. They can just go round and round, but then they feel like they're going straight. They have bad listening skills, things like that. What are some skills you think are very, very necessary in terms of orientation and mobility? And what are some skills that you think can be compensated for?
Okay, maybe talk about the skills that they need. They probably high priority to train as much as possible lah. One of it I think could be hearing, their auditory skills, because not so much of how much they can hear, but how much they can make sense of what they can hear. In terms of like, are they approaching a traffic light? Are they approaching a road crossing? When you hear traffic, which direction is the traffic coming from? Because these are helpful pointers whereby they can pick up and help them orientate on their environment. And sometimes also how much they use their other skill sets, or rather other sensory skills. Like for example, the other one is some of them, they use their smells. Passing by subway, I can smell the smell, therefore I know where I am in the shopping mall, this kind of thing. So what are the other sensory skills that can help them to recognize the environment? I think that is very key, because a lot of times when we lose our main sensory skill of sight, we forget that there are other senses that we can make use of to help you. Yeah, and I think that's important.
And
So
on this note, right, it's not like it's not natural that the moment you lose your sight, your other skills will just pick up. It's really something that you need to train, right?
Correct. And you are able to only train at it if, let's say, you have been using a particular route and you have been using that particular sense to help you problem solve.
Okay. So like making sense of your other senses
The
lah, basically.
environment.
Yeah, correct. So that's the other thing I would look for also during assessment. Like if let's say your orientation skills, you say it's not very good in terms of you suddenly not sure which direction you are facing and all that, then how do you problem solve? How do you find out then where is your right direction? Do you use your other senses, or do you ask for help from a passerby nearby?
Okay.
And even if you do ask someone, sometimes it's also a skill, because how do you
How do
approach
you
someone?
ask the right question?
Yeah,
Also?
correct.
Oh.
Mm.
Okay, so it's more of like how do you problem solve to get your orientation back, rather than like keep going on and then just never finding out that you're wrong and then just keep
Yes,
going and then
correct.
hoping that you'll end up somewhere.
Yes,
Okay, that
that's
makes
right.
a lot of sense. So in terms of training, right, let's say we have a client who wants to step into using a guide dog, in terms of like moving from O&M to using a guide dog. What do you think there are any activities or any suggestions to build up like this problem solving skill?
Activity or suggestion? I think activity, as I say, if you are a regular traveler that uses daily routes, then practice these skills on your daily routes as much as you can. As you are traveling on a route, you might want to consciously highlight to yourself what are the landmarks that I can pick up, that highlight to me where I am on this route, where I can detect what are my markers, and actively use it. Because a lot of times, the more you use certain things, you actually get more attuned to how you can use strategies to help you enhance the ability to use it as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yep.
So for like, let's say, like for like maybe this particular client, right? Like her current usual routes does not actually require her to cross the road, for example. But then she has an intention to use a guide dog because her future routes will require her to like cross roads. Like maybe she knows that she's gonna like she's changing her job, and the future job location actually requires her to cross roads lah. So would you like suggest that this person be exposed to road crossing before she's being assessed to like guide dog? Like
okay,
before
if
she goes through the guide dog assessment.
Yeah. So if she already knows that in the future she's likely to be crossing roads and using traffic crossings in whatever sense, then yeah, I will encourage her to use it, to start practicing it by maybe extending her current route a little bit, or try out a new route that has traffic crossings just for practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to expose herself to road crossings.
Correct.
Okay.
That's right. Yes. And I think road crossings is one important one key area that guide dog users need to pay attention to lah.
That's all.
Yeah, I think that's all for me as well. Anyway, if anyone else has any other question in terms of how their job might relate to someone who might want to use a guide dog, like for example, if you're a social worker or if you're a physiotherapist and you have questions in regards to how a patient of yours might want to use a guide dog, leave it in the comment section down below. Or if you have any general questions, just leave it in the comment section down below as well. If not, you can just like and subscribe. Otherwise, that's it from the three of us. We can say bye.
Bye.